This is the Senior Beat. I'm your host, Duff Ryder. Welcome to another lively discussion of business trends and cultural shifts that affect the aging population. Over the past few years, we've seen an explosion of new ideas, new products, and new forms of expression that help define the lifestyles of older Americans. At the Senior Beat, you'll meet artists, entrepreneurs, and business leaders who are active participants in this reimagining of the senior experience. Our guest today, Veronica Sibley, is one of those extraordinary individuals. Veronica, I'm so glad we have a chance to renew this, what I call a professional and a personal relationship that's been going on for nearly a decade now. And of course, we know each other from working together on senior living communities. And plus, there was that Greek dancing episode a few years back. So
Yes.
why don't you just share with us some of your history, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. So yes, I got started in senior living back in 1999 when I opened Aegis of Moraga as a salesperson.
Oh, okay.
Love the connection with families, was in fact providing an atmosphere and a better place for people to age well in that area. So this was something that was very needed by that community. And, there's really not a lot of congregate living in that area. So I made great connections that have actually lasted to this day. So very, very.
And that's a great introduction too. I mean, you're with a high-class organization and no better place to learn the business and, all aspects of it. So frankly, but
yeah.
So now you're serving as the marketing director for a home care management agency that serves, seniors in the greater East Bay. So why don't you tell us now a little bit about Senior Alternatives?
Sure. So this is a boutique agency, well established and trusted in the industry. It has withstood the test of time, and I was happy to join a year ago now.
Okay. And how long is that's your experience with Senior Alternatives, but they've been around for a while. How long have they been in business?
Yeah, Senior Alternatives has been serving the Bay Area since 1995. And this longevity gives us unique insights into how to deliver great services with, efficiency, very compassionately and with purpose.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. And who do you serve? Who would you say your clientele is?
We primarily focus on aging adults throughout the Bay Area, so basically Alameda County and Contra Costa County, but we also serve younger or middle-aged adults that are in need of physical assistance and may have similar needs as to what elders have.
Okay. And when you talk about serving the seniors themselves, is that multifaceted? Are families ever involved, or is it primarily directly with the seniors?
Yes, directly to our actual client, which is typically a senior.
Okay. All right. And then what kind of care I know this sounds like a basic question, but what kind of care do you provide?
So we provide non-medical care and care management services.
Okay. And maybe you could explain the difference between medical and non-medical for people who aren't dealing with this every day.
Absolutely. And that's a question that I get often asked. And so when we talk about non-medical care, we mean care by caregivers, which is assistance with activities of daily living, such as bathing and getting dressed, cooking, maybe balancing a checkbook, maybe medication reminders. It could be driving to appointments or shopping. So these are just basic things. And then from a medical perspective, when you think of medical care, that would be a home health agency that would provide individuals that are nurses or LVNs or other medical professionals. So that's the difference.
Okay. The activities of daily living, that's something that's fairly well established. I don't know, is that like the Council on Aging or somebody like that? Who figures out what those ADLs are?
Yes, and you're right on. It is the Council on Aging. That's where those terms come from.
Okay. And Are your services covered by Medicare?
While our services are not covered by Medicare, long-term care insurance companies do pay for most of our services. So we help our clients with the completion of paperwork and so forth. So generally, our services are a complement to medical care.
Okay, that's a good way of putting it. And I guess helping them with all the forms and stuff is also a part of care management, I suppose.
Right.
Okay. All right. And so I want to ask you now to sort of point out some differences. You said it's a boutique agency, but how is Senior Alternatives different from other home care services and agencies otherwise?
I think really is because we combine home care services with care management, which not a lot of agencies do out in the marketplace. And so this makes it a comprehensive situation for seniors. So another aspect too is that our rates are very competitive in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. But that combination of care management, that's the missing part oftentimes. It's just other people
Right.
bringing out the caregivers, but they're not really looking at it more holistically. Am I saying that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And, it seems to me that based on that your best practices have become kind of an industry standard. So how do your competitors view Senior Alternatives?
I think that because of that combination of care management and home care, we differ. A lot of agencies out there provide only caregivers, only the ability to have someone come in and get some help at home, but not really the care management. And especially because of our team, of geriatric social workers, and so that combination really is unique, and that's why people that are owners or sales team members from other home care agencies, they'll refer to us because of that.
Okay. So you have inroads in with knowing the level and the kind of care that you provide, kind of a
Right.
preferred, provider, I guess, that way.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's great. And what would be the typical kind of professional and educational background of your employees?
So we employ 6 master's level geriatric care managers with a combined 200 plus years of experience. We also employ approximately 100 caregivers who are trained by us. This team is directly screened, they're employed by us, they're insured and bonded by our company.
Okay. And why is the screening and the bonding so important?
So we ensure that the individuals we send out to clients' homes are fully vetted. And this gives families peace of mind. We ensure that they have a valid driver's license, that they are trained by us. And what this does is it creates a high level of security for our family members, and clients feel that they can trust the source, trust us.
Okay. All right. That's important then. And given that, what's your typical employee turnover? Do you hang on to people pretty well, or is it just the nature of the industry that there's a lot of churn?
We do. This is a question that I asked early on when I first got started. I wanted to know the tenure of our folks. And so our caregiver turnover is less than 20%, well below an industry standard of about 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're an equal opportunity provider. We don't discriminate by age, race, gender, religion, orientation. And I was really happy to hear as to how many people actually had been with us for 7+ years, which was a list of about 25 folks.
Wow. Well, I did a little bit of homework before this interview, and that's why I'm asking the question, is because I know that there tends to be a lot of churn. So obviously, it's better for everybody if you've got a stable workforce and people are used to seeing
Right.
the same, people coming to see them, and in keeping the frontline people who are taking care of people, feeling like they're engaged and connected and thought about, I think would make a huge difference.
Absolutely. It definitely does.
I have a question for you, though. You mentioned that you have, I think it's 6 people that are like geriatric care managers and have specific training, things like that. How do they interact with the actual caregivers? Do they supervise them, or do they provide, they're there as a resource, or how does that work?
Yes, primarily as a resource, but they do also provide training. And say, for instance, a caregiver has a situation with someone that they're taking care of. So they're able to call on, say, for instance, our RN for a question. Or if they are taking care of someone that has dementia, and maybe there are, some new developments that they're seeing with this particular individual, then they can call on our care manager that is a dementia expert. So it's availability of information. So it's a resource situation. And I think that that's also unique, in comparison to other agencies.
Let me ask you sort of a broader question, and that's, what is the Senior Alternatives philosophy or approach to caring for older adults? And then my follow-up for that is, what's your personal experience? I know what your personal experience is working with adults in senior living, but what's your personal experience in working with older adults in this environment?
So as far as senior alternatives approach, we understand the aging process and have unique knowledge of how memory affects this process. However, we also work with younger adults. So they may face similar issues, that elders do. And there's this situation of isolation, that we find often with the people that we care for.
There's excuse me for interrupting you, but this is like a huge national subject, the epidemic and loneliness,
Exactly.
and how people deal with that.
Yeah. So I think we come into play really well when it comes to, bringing an individual that connects with another individual at home that maybe had been suffering from that isolation. And then the fact that our caregivers can drive and take folks around and maybe bring them to other situations where they can be with other people where, before they may not have been able to do that. So I think that connection is really key.
Okay.
And so as far as my personal experience, as I got started in the senior living industry, I knew that this was the right place for me, especially because I grew up with my grandparents. So that connection with elderly folks just, kept going when I came here to the States and started working in senior living. And so home care is not that much different than senior living in that it's caring for folks that, have a need for connection, have a need for physical assistance. But it's just, I guess, more on a personal level. For myself, I feel still connected to the population that I helped when I first got started in the business.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, rather than doing it in a congregated environment, you're doing it on a home by home basis.
Right.
Okay. Now I want to broaden things out even further here and talk about more almost from a policy standpoint. As the demographics of our country continue to shift older, understanding the stages of dementia and care for dementia have become increasingly important. And I think like AARP covers this topic pretty regularly in their bulletins and publications. But what's your take on dealing with dementia?
So we deal with many aging processes and diseases, including dementia and all its subcategories. And additionally, we're adept at managing difficult behaviors, caregiver stress, dealing with resistance, managing depression, and planning life enrichment activities. So this all comes into play in how we train our caregivers, how our support team works, and that folks can rely on us, not only from family member standpoint, but also from, our caregiver standpoint, that they can rely on our knowledge and expertise.
Yeah, well, that's terrific. So it really kind of all boils down to the quality of care, isn't that the case?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So when you put together a care team for a client, how is that done? How do you decide who needs to go where?
So first, it starts with an individual calling on us. They call our office or they reach out to us individually, and then a care manager is assigned to that individual. Consequently, there's an assessment that comes into play. So we schedule the assessment, and so that responsible person will go and do an assessment with an individual. And then after the assessment is completed, that's when the matching process comes into play as to matching this individual with one of our caregivers. And so we think of skill set, personality, availability, and so forth.
And that's really what you're describing here is the client assessment process.
Right.
Okay. All right. And then in addition to that, you spoke a little bit about the training that you provide. And do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that as far as how somebody is actually brought into Senior Alternatives and learns the tools of the trade?
So our screening process is very rigorous. We only hire experienced workers. So we ensure that they've worked in another environment, such as helping an individual at home or maybe a community. So applications are taken by appointment only. We review resumes. We have the applicant go through a written and verbal test, conduct an interview. Then they undergo an FBI and DOJ background check. And we also ensure that they're registered with the California state. So professional references are called to validate information that we've received. And so that's basically the application process. And then after that, we conduct our training.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to think about it too much, but actually it is kind of important that everybody passes an FBI check. You just never know, right? Otherwise, just being thorough. Yeah. Okay. Again, this is a kind of a basic question, but I think our viewers might want to get a better sense of this. But what exactly is care management?
So care management is when an individual is assigned to one of our care managers. They become a type of fiduciary that can offer the following services, such as medical liaison and advocacy, medication management, coordination of care and other services, long distance family support, consulting for family, support for adult children, and or a spouse of a client. And so that is basically managing someone's care.
Now, when you get a request, how quickly can you respond to that?
Typically within 24 hours. So our staff is available 24 hours, but if we acquire a new client and they're seeking to start services, we can respond within 24 or 48 hours.
Okay. All right. And then some of the nuts and bolts, how do you bill your clients? How does that part work?
We bill our clients or the responsible party, depending on what the situation may be, every 2 weeks for services. Okay. And some parties have long-term care insurance. So those policies come into play very nicely and they will receive a reimbursement for our services. So we complete that paperwork and ensure that that is taken care of so that they can get reimbursed for what they've already paid out to us.
Yeah. Both my parents had the foresight to get long-term care insurance, and
Very nice.
Absolute lifesaver. I mean, it just took care of so many things. And I was impressed with the professionalism with both companies of how they really understood what they were doing, and they themselves were compassionate, but it's great when somebody does that, but not everybody can, right? Not everybody has the resources.
Yeah. Especially when you're young, you don't think of getting long-term care insurance. And so, you think that you're going to be fine forever, but we all know it's not the case. So yes.
Exactly. So how do you receive feedback from your clients? How do you know how you're doing?
So within 2 to 3 weeks of starting services, we initiate a phone call to the client themselves, or a family member should check in on how the care plan's working. So we always provide a way to contact us and our team 24 hours a day, so that way we can hear if there's things that are happening. And we also send out an anonymous satisfaction survey quarterly to gather more in-depth feedback.
Okay. We're kind of coming to the end here, but I have just a few more questions for you. And I just wanted a comment really more than anything else. And that it seems to me that Senior Alternatives is addressing kind of a higher calling in both in choosing your employees and how you interact with your clientele.
Yes, we are definitely a mission-driven organization, and we love what we do. So it shows in every aspect of how we conduct our business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what's your best referral source for new clients?
So our clients come to us through various sources, such as attorneys or fiduciaries or discharge planners, folks in senior living communities, like an executive director, for instance, or hospice companies, and also through word of mouth from past clients that we have served and have had stellar service from us. So obviously they refer to their friends. And so that's another way.
Well, as you know, word of mouth is the best way to get things. Nothing like have somebody else say, "Oh, these people are great." Yeah,
yes.
that's cool. Well, thank you very much. This has been a very informative discussion. And before we go, I'd just like to ask if you have any final thoughts on the future of senior care and what role you hope to play.
So, I feel that our company's home care, especially, is truly the first life defense for families and elders as they age. This is the gap between living at home comfortably and safely and a senior community. So I
Yeah.
truly feel that we're positioned rightly in the marketplace, especially for baby boomers. They've taken the
Yeah.
steps to use universal design in their homes to equip their, place of living so that they are able to stay home for a long time and grow old and have future comfort. So I think agencies like ours are going to be around for a long time because of that. And we can be a lifesaver for a lot of folks that want to stay home.
Mhm. Certainly, there is a very strong trend, not for everybody, but of aging in place. And you guys are part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how can our viewers get in touch with you, Veronica? What's the best way to, if they want to find out more?
Yes. So my email is very easy. It's veronica@senalt.com. So veronica@senalt.com. That's a great way to get in touch. And thank you, Duff. This has been great. It's so lovely to see you. Always a pleasure.
Well,
And,
I think the Greek festival's coming up soon, Veronica.
that's right. It's a couple of Saturdays from now, isn't it? So we have to connect there for sure.
Again soon. So, but in the meantime, thank you so much for your time, and you've just been great.
All right. Well, time to roll the credits.